Welcome to Not Suitable for Work. I'm your host, Peter C. Diamond. You think your office is nuts? Wait until you hear some of these stories.
It's a story I tell people as a cautionary tale of what not to do in a pressure-filled situation.
Week two in a new job, and I'm in a penthouse hot tub suite with my two half-naked coworkers and three girls from the New York office.
What about our professional dynamic has given you license to act in this way?
I realized she's kind of a mean girl.
With each podcast, I'll interview people who have a humorous work story to share. Along the way, I'll offer tidbits of advice to help you make sense of your own office nonsense. Don't worry, no careers were harmed in making Not Suitable for Work. Names and places may have been changed to protect the not so innocent. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Early in my career, I really wanted to work for an advertising agency. However, there were a few obstacles. One, I didn't have a degree from a top-flight MBA program, which what all the agencies at the time were looking for. And I spent the first 4 years of my career as a corporate accountant for a large mainframe computer company that no longer exists. So everyone I spoke to in advertising said I was doomed. I mean, they would come back and say to me, how could an accountant be creative? And all I thought is, that's absolutely ridiculous. So I set out to prove them all wrong. By sheer coincidence and being in the right place at the right time, I was given one chance, and I mean one chance, to interview at a prestigious advertising agency in Chicago. So I immersed myself in the ad biz. I spoke to everyone at any agency who would speak to me, and I spent hours, literally hours, preparing for a full day of interviews. This was my one shot, and I wasn't going to leave anything on the table. So somehow, I don't know how, but somehow I charmed and hoodwinked enough folks, and I got in by the skin of my teeth. From there, I spent over 20 years in the ad biz. Pretty good for an ex-accountant. So I may not have had all the pedigree and credentials, but I was scrappy and really determined. Afterwards, my future boss, who is the one that recruited me, said with a chuckle, either you were supremely prepared or you know how to BS like the best of them. Either way, I'm glad to have you on my team. In today's episode, my guest's interest is piqued when presented with a seemingly outsized and outlandish challenge. Undeterred by his underdog status, he gleefully embraces this opportunity to demonstrate his creativity. He defies the odds by over-delivering on expectations and using every bit of showmanship and cleverness he can muster, even in the face of adversity.
Well, the story that I talk about today was my little experience on the Today Show.
On the Today Show? Wow.
It was
all right.
11 years ago. And I think it was when Martha Stewart went to jail.
Martha goes to jail.
My life to Martha goes.
One door closes for Martha, another one opens up for Wade.
There you go. That's exactly right. When what happened was the Today Show thought it'd be very clever to say who would be the next domestic diva, since she's not available right now. And so they had a national contest, and they said, you think you've got the skills to do this? Put together a 500-word essay and a 1-minute video and send it to us by this deadline. And we're going to make a selection of a few finalists and have them on the show live to see what you can do. And amazingly, I had put together a birthday cake for someone. And it wasn't just a cake. It was a multi-tiered cake. It was 4 different tiers I'd built in my wood shop. And then I built a different dessert on each one of the tiers. And I just happened to videotape it. And I had the camera, I'm saying videotape, that's how long it was ago. I think it was a digital camera.
So you built the cake.
I built the platform, and then I made the cake.
I got it.
So both. And I happened to have a video recording of that, and I showed it to my boss at the time. And she said, you should enter that contest. And I had no idea what the contest was. I hadn't heard about it at all. And I went online to figure out what it was about, and I had literally 3 days to put together an application and submit it in. And it included, like I said before, a video and an essay.
And prior to this.
Yes.
I mean, did you have any experience like being a domestic diva? Was there?
Well, no.
Was there just one?
Yes, there was a school. I took a class in college for it. It was a DDS.
You trained for this?
No, but I came from a big family, and a family of 5 boys, and my mom was always cooking for the masses, and our house was the bigger house of our family, not by a large amount, but it was the bigger house. So it was always the place for gatherings. And so my mom was pretty aggressive. She was the domestic diva. She cooked a lot. She did a lot of functions on a grand scale.
I love it. Your mom was aggressive.
She
was
was
really aggressive about this.
She had to raise 5 kids.
Cooking and entertaining thing.
She was actually, but I think I learned a lot of that. I learned entertaining and sort of family from her.
And where do you fall in the?
I'm the
middle,
middle child.
Okay, great.
Yeah, exactly. With all the issues and problems.
Now I understand.
Thank you. It's all very clear. So anyway, I have a lot of just random skills that I never thought would amount to anything until this contest came along. So I had skills in the kitchen. I had skills in the workshop. I was creative in an advertising agency, so I had my own design skills. And so my submission was a videotape that I shot myself, with one lockdown camera, and then the essay I wrote. But I actually wrote the essay and I printed it in rectangular shape, pieces of paper, much similar to a videotape, and I made a box in my wood shop to go along with it. So anyway, lo and behold, I submitted that. They decided on 3 finalists: a woman about the age of Martha Stewart, a young woman who was in her 20s, and then me. So I think I covered all the other areas that weren't covered by those 2 women. So
you were the catch-all.
I was the catch-all guy. You got to get guy, African American, anything else. So that's what they did. Well, then the contest itself was go to New York, and for 3 days you're going to on live television do a demonstration, do whatever they threw at you, whatever challenges that might be a Martha Stewart-esque challenge.
And is this is this precursor to reality TV stuff? Like, or is this this is the early stages of when reality TV and this was really becoming popular, right?
That's exactly right. Because it was a cooking competition, and it was a live cooking competition, and they were giving you a very short amount of time to come up with a solution without knowing what it was going to be prior to the beginning of the contest. So yes, it was. As a matter of fact, I think CBS, this was on NBC, CBS had a similar show that happened about the same time, and it was called Wickedly Perfect or something. Similar sort of concept. And maybe it was all because of Martha Stewart going to jail. I'm not sure. But anyway, the bottom line is the very first day, we had 30 minutes to create a meal. And literally, it was freezing cold. They hadn't anticipated it being as cold as it was. I think it was early April. And it was and they had to do it outside. So there's a mini grocery store they set up for everybody and a cook station with 2 cooktops. And they said, we're gonna give you 30 minutes. Just go.
And here's a parka.
Here's a parka. Yeah, here's a parka and gloves and everything else, and go create a meal. Conditions that just aren't as normal as anybody would try to cook in 30 minutes. And so I literally jumped in like the 2 women did, and I started making this dish that was a chicken dish with lemon and all this sort of stuff, and I cut my finger.
No way.
And I cut my finger on live television, and I'm doing this slow, looking in every possible direction, like, oh God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I didn't know what to do. But at the same time, I was thinking, this is your one and only shot to do this. You got to do something. And so they had surgical gloves down below for people that were going to use chicken or cut raw fish or raw chicken rather on the show. And so I just basically grabbed one of those surgical gloves, shoved my hand in there, and just kept on going. And I just let the blood sort of ooze out of my finger. I mean, it was inside the glove, so it was completely safe. The food, I took the knife.
Pooling in the
No, it's pooling in the glove. The knife that I had used, I put it away, and I got a fresh knife.
So is this on your right hand?
It's my right hand.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was actually.
Oh, you cut your left.
I think I cut my left finger. My left finger, because
right.
I was cooking. I was using a knife with my right hand, and I told the producer that it had happened while the competition was, because it literally was like 10 minutes into this 3-day competition. And I just said, I got to keep going. So I just kept going. And I ended up making a relatively decent dish, I suppose. There were 3 judges that were there from other reality TV shows. I think, what's her name? The food and lifestyle woman. She's got her own show now. I can't think of her name. It'll come to me in a minute. But she was one of the judges. There was also a guy who was a HGTV, do-it-yourself kind of guy, one of the judges, and then there was somebody from NBC, one of their personality people or their talent coordinators or something like that. So anyway, they basically tasted all the food, made just generic comments, and they let America vote. And over the next 3 days, America had to vote on who they thought was the more talented domestic diva, as it were. And there was the one woman that was Martha Stewart's age was from Minnesota. And she had already made an effort to connect with the news media there, that she was going to be on this competition. And neither I nor the other woman had done anything like that. So I realized I was already going to be behind in this whole competition in terms of getting public support.
Because you have the savvy Minnesota woman.
Yeah, she's already...
She's got her PR people, on it.
She was working it big time. So I basically went home.
And you're like, I'm not losing this.
This is not going to happen to Minneapolis. So I went back to my hotel room, and I wrote emails to all of the local TV stations in Chicago and to whoever the morning anchors were for all the local stations. I did it primarily to NBC because I was on the Today Show, but I also sent it to radio stations as well. And I didn't hear back that night, but then the next day I'd found out that a couple of people had actually talked about it on the radio, had talked about it on the air, and then NBC, their producer at NBC's morning show, connected with me the next day, and I did a live broadcast from Rockefeller Center in New York to the local morning show. And it was Dick Johnson and Zoraida Samblin, as I still remember, chatting with them way back when. And they started promoting it, and interestingly enough, they promoted it all over Chicago for the next 2 days, and so they got Chicago voting for me, which was great. And the first day was a cooking demonstration for 30 minutes.
Now, in the meantime, tell me that your finger's now bandaged.
Well, my finger's all bandaged. Well, see, here's yes. The thing of it was, and I'll get back to why my finger was part of the story too in a minute, because my finger was, when the competition was over with, and I plated my food, and I took the food over there, the producer came up to me and said, do you want to put a Band-Aid? I said, well, you really don't want to look at what's inside of this plastic glove right now. So I put my hand down underneath the counter, and I took the glove off and put it in the bowl of water they had there, and literally the bowl of water turned blood red, no pun intended. And we put a Band-Aid on it, and it wasn't a big deal. It was a minor little cut, but when something starts bleeding like that, especially when you're all stressed out, it's just going to keep bleeding. So it did, but we put a Band-Aid on it. But I realized that was also an opportunity to sort of milk it for as much as I possibly could, because oh my God, I cut myself, I'm going to die on television.
But I'm still going.
I kept persevering.
I'm partially maimed, but I'm gonna see this through.
Nothing's going to stop me. Anyway, so what happened was the next day we had, I forget what the order of things were. I think the first day we had to do a cooking competition. Then after the cooking competition, we had to do a floral arrangement in 5 minutes. And then the next day we had to
stay away from the
roses. Well, it was the heart of the next day was I had to deal with, we had to do a craft project, and there were X-Acto blades everywhere. So I was a little concerned about that. But anyway, and it's funny because the first day I think I had Matt Lauer as the guy that was personally, because it was Matt Lauer, Ann Curry, and Katie Couric were the three people that they'd stand at each one of the stations with each one of the contestants. And so I had Matt Lauer the first day, but the next day when we did the craft competition, which was put together, a variety of different things were on the table, put together whatever sort of craft project you want in another 30-minute period of time. And they had these little tin boxes and all kinds of other little pieces of paper and stuff. So I decided to make a very colorful circus-like box for markers, because there were markers there as well. But when Katie Couric came over, I said, Katie, could you tell my mom that my finger's okay? Because my finger was fine. But, I figured let's go for the sympathy vote. And so Katie Couric on live television.
Katie's a mom.
Yeah, she's a mom. So Katie on live television goes, well, I just want to let moms know, let Wayne's mom know that his finger's okay. We were a little worried about it here at the Today. And so she milked it just as much as I had. So that was another, I figured that would be beneficial in terms of points. And for votes, rather. But also backing up to the cooking competition, the funny thing is you had 30 minutes to create a meal. And this goes back to my advertising. I worked at Leo Burnett, and they gave us improv classes if we wanted them as part of our presentation skills training. And so we had 30 minutes to make a meal. And this woman next to me made a dish that was, I think it was a relatively nice dish, but the woman, it was like Martha Stewart's age. She made the shrimp dish. And she basically said, well, it only takes about 15 minutes to make. And I thought it'd be really cool. So she took her time to make and I'm thinking, okay, you're on live television, and you have an opportunity to present something special, and you're going to make the most basic thing that only takes 15 minutes to make. And instead, what I did was I made a 3-course meal, aggressively as hell, because I figured the more I put out there, the more it's going to look impressive to people. So that's what I did. I made a 3-course meal. It was an appetizer made with, I think it was a goat cheese caprese salad. Then I made a tomato or a vegetable soup. And then I made this chicken dish as well. So I had this whole presentation of all this stuff. I was just sitting there. And plus this kid was like harassing me from the sidelines from the audience. And so I made an omelet for him at the very last minute too, because I had a few seconds left. So I was doing all these various things. Like, this is your one and only chance to present something. Your one and only chance to really show yourself. And so I just went for it, and as aggressively as I possibly could. And having a cut finger was just, it played into as well. And when I did the little live connection with Zoraida and Dick, it was the same thing. I talked about my finger as if I was, I was dying. I needed a transfusion to continue the competition. It's terrible. But anyway, the bottom line is the third day, they brought us all on stage and they said, a ton of people in America voted and the winner is Wayne. And so I won the competition. It was really fun. So how much of that was just sort of playing to the audience, how much of it was the fact that they just enjoyed what I did, I don't know. But the bottom line is when you're presented with a problem like that, you take every possible advantage and use it to your advantage. And that's what I learned in my advertising days anyway. If you're making a presentation, go for whatever you can. Look at your audience and figure out what your audience is going to connect with and make sure you're aggressive with that and go after it. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and I love the fact that when even in the beginning of the story, you talked about how you found out about this, that you just went for it. And it was like, I'm just going to do this. And I don't know, did you have any, was there anything, did you have any second thoughts in your mind, or was it just like, I'm just going to go do it? Did you?
Well, it's interesting. Because I only had literally 2.5 days to submit this thing, I don't know what was going through my head at the time, but I was trying really hard to just take advantage of something that was presented to me. I had videotape that was a portion of something I could submit for a competition, and I have editing skills. I've got design skills. I can build a box. I can write relatively well. It just felt like an opportunity to throw all these little things I'd been learning over the years into one place. And there was no thought in my mind that I was going to be selected. I mean, this is one of those competitions where they had anybody that says, would you like to be on TV and show that you can cook and create things? Thousands of people are going to enter that. So the belief that you're going to be the one that's going to be selected is like, in my mind, 1 in a million. But I did it anyway because it just felt like a fun thing to do.
As you were doing this domestic diva contest, what were you hoping to get out of this? I mean, were you like, Martha's in jail? I'm like, were you hoping to really take over? I mean, or was just kind of a lark? What's?
Yes.
Yes and yes.
No, it's funny. Yeah, I wanted a house up in the Hamptons with 7 matching black dogs because that's what she has. That's her White House. No, actually, what they had was. By winning the competition, what they were offering is one additional food and lifestyle segment on the Today Show. Just one.
Okay. All right.
One.
So to come back.
To come back and do a show. And I was very excited about that concept, just to be able to do what I did in the competition and do it one more time. And who knew if I had had the opportunity to expand it beyond that. I certainly was excited about it. As a matter of fact, after I won the contest and before I went back to do my one little segment, local NBC, the local affiliate, had me come on and just chat with them. It was, again, Dick and Zoraida. And I told them, I said, you know what, I've always had this idea of a show called Wayne's Weekend, where on Friday, I go to a restaurant and talk about wines. On Saturday, I cook a meal at home with friends. And then on Sunday, we go out and party somewhere else and experience a new restaurant. And I remember Zoraida saying, I'd watch that. That'd be kind of fun. And so the Today Show invited me back for one segment. And I called the segment, a long time ago, I had done a party with my friends called the Ferris Bueller Day, where we all basically called in sick and just took an entire day off and just did whatever we wanted to do. And I couldn't use the name Ferris Bueller on the Today Show, so I called it the annual board meeting, B-O-R-E-D, and completely meant to be tongue-in-cheek and corny. As a matter of fact, when Matt Lauer said the name, I think I elbowed him in the stomach going, arr, arr, arr. And it got him laughing, which made the segment very silly and fun. So we had a great time doing that one segment. And then they actually did invite me back for 4 or 5 additional segments, which was very fun. And then while that was happening, local NBC said, you're having a good time doing that. Would you like to come and do that here on local NBC? And I said, yeah, that'd be great. And they said, well, we can't pay you very much, but I'm like, it's okay. I get to be on TV. Oh, fun. And so from that point on, for 10 years, I did a live 2 to 3 minute segment on local WMAQ in the morning. Well, initially it was in the morning, during the morning 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. period. And then it switched to the afternoon during their 11 o'clock, their lunch hour. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was great, great fun. And then that ended about 2 years ago because I was a paid contributor for NBC, and they realized that they didn't have to pay someone to come and do food and lifestyle segments. They could get every chef in Chicago to come and do a free segment without having to pay for it. So my stint ended at that point. But I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I got a lot of ego points out of doing it. It wasn't very financially successful, but it was a lot of fun.
Today, how is any of that experience, how was it maybe helping you, propelling you, moving forward?
Well, one of the things that has happened, and you touched on it earlier, is the idea of how we have changed in terms of social media quite dramatically from way back when, from 12 years ago when I was on the Today Show. So one of the things I have done is I've started my own YouTube channel where I do create more and more of these segments as I come upon them. I'm not as aggressive as some people. YouTube can be an amazingly financially successful vehicle for some people. They aggressively put together segments that are either whatever the concept or whatever the topic category. They're very successful with it. But I'm also a web designer and a graphic designer, which is my real job, my real source of income. So it's hard to dedicate the time to create a YouTube channel that some people have been successful at. So I do it more as a dabble than it is a reality. And I do the same thing on my Facebook page. So I've got a decent following in all those areas. I could be a lot more successful with it if I was more aggressive at it. But it's hard to balance all those various things. The problem with being who I was to be on the contest is I juggle a lot of different things. And I love juggling a lot of different things. And I haven't really decided what I want to do when I grow up. So each one of those things still become a part of my life.
Or maybe what you want to do when you grow up is juggling those different things.
Well, that's exactly right.
It's kind of like right. Maybe, and I think that is also a wonderful thing to learn about ourselves is maybe it's not, some people can focus on one thing and be dedicated and it sounds like you, and I think I fall in the same camp too of, I just, that's not quite me. So I think I'm never going to have kind of that laser focus on one thing, but I think I'm much happier doing a couple different things.
I totally agree. That's exactly who I am. Yeah.
All right. So one final question. Mm-hmm. When your name was announced after winning, was there crying? Was there weeping? I mean, what I want to know, I always wanted like, I know what I saw probably, on TV, but like backstage, like, I mean, what was...
The video still exists, and it's quite amusing. I was completely shocked and blown away. And I said no way, as in somebody had just stolen something from me. And I said it 2 or 3 times. And then I got very excited, and I learned to ice skate when I was really young, and I learned how to do crazy aerial jumps when I was ice skating. So I literally, on stage, on national TV, jumped up in the air and did a full revolution and landed again in the process of me being excited. But I do believe, quite honestly, that the woman who was Martha Stewart's age clearly thought she was going to win. And I think there was a little bit of a disappointment in her face at that moment. I don't think the other woman, the woman who was younger, I don't think she was feeling as confident as the woman who was from Minneapolis was. So there was no comments after the fact, but there's definitely
no comments.
There was shock and surprise on my part.
There were no tears shed in public, no. But I'm sure later.
Yeah.
Was probably not.
The funny thing was they actually had to get a crown as opposed to tiara. I think they'd already bought a tiara thinking a woman was going to win, so they had to go and find a crown the next day.
Some production assistant is out there like,
what do we do?
searching for a crown.
Exactly.
Love it. All right. Thanks, man.
You bet.
Always pleasure.
My pleasure.
Wayne seized this opportunity to open new doors that utilize all his skills and talents. You can check out Wayne's ingenuity on his YouTube channel, Wayne's Weekend. If you want more Not Suitable for Work or have a work story to tell, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Not Suitable for Work. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review. I'm Peter C. Diamond. You can follow me on Twitter at Peter C. Diamond. Not Suitable for Work is produced by Matt Cunningham at Truthful Enthusiasm. get your story online with truthfulenthusiasm.com. Until next time,